Hi and welcome back. So the last update finished with me discovering some rot in the wood in the core at the foredeck, which I just removed the skin to expose, and also the suspicion that perhaps the core throughout the boat might be a little bit too damp. So I just picked up a moisture meter. Actually, it was this one here, the Trimax Skipper Plus moisture meter. And I'd done some readings and everything seemed like it was saturated, and I sort of panicked and thought that everything was rubbish because of this moisture meter. So since then what's happened is I've asked Anthony, the contractor, to come in and bring his moisture meter. Now he has a brand called Sovereign, or a make called Sovereign, and that's basically 3 times the price of the moisture meter that I have. And his feedback that a lot of the sort of DIY moisture meters that you can get around on the market aren't actually that reliable. And sure enough, when I tried to calibrate mine against his, the readings were vastly different. Basically, the comparison was working on my piece of equipment. So taking the top of the top sides, it was showing it as relatively dry. Going to the deck, it was showing it as wet. But there didn't seem to be any accurate gradient between, dry and wet. So with mine, wherever there was any moisture would immediately go to 100% and the alarm would come off, whereas the Sovereign would be showing maybe 60% on the comparison meter, or 50%, or 70%, or somewhere in the middle. So I'm just a little bit worried that the product I've got isn't really fit for purpose, perhaps. It's just maybe not accurate enough to give you a real indication. So I'll show you what I mean by that. We'll just go through and do some comparisons of moisture readings on the boat that I did previously with Anthony's Sovereign moisture meter. Let's take a look at this one here. 59 on the surface, 70 at depth. So at surface I'm getting 50 as opposed to 59. At depth I'm getting way over 100, whereas he's getting 70. Now there's a massive difference between 70 and way over 100. Again, he's got 80 here, at depth 60 on the surface. Surface here shows 40, depth, all the way off the meter. 60 at depth, 36 shallow here. So on the surface we're getting 40, which is about what he's getting. At depth just under 100, he's getting 60. So that's 60 versus 95. And again, 60 is reasonable, you can work with that, and 100 is saying that it's basically saturated. Yeah, so unfortunately I don't really know what to do now. You can buy a calibration kit for that Trimax moisture meter, so I guess I can buy one of those and then I can just test that meter to see if it's calibrated correctly. But that's just throwing more money at a product that might not actually be worth it. If it doesn't calibrate properly, then okay, I've got a faulty one. There's hope there, I can take it back and get another one. But if it does calibrate properly, it's just showing me that it's never really going to work the way I want it to work, which is to give a very accurate reading. So perhaps I'll just get on with the rotten wood core, which I uncovered last update. There's a bit more work I can do on that now. Okay, so let's get started. There's 2 types of scraper blades I've been using for my oscillating tool. There's one that's advertised as being flexible and one that's advertised as being more rigid. And these are 2 different brands. This is a Makita and this is just a basic screw fix brand. And I think this is the Makita's 3 times the price of this one. When I did the teak deck, I used the flexible Makita one because it was able to really find its way between the teak and the deck and break up that bond that way. I went through 4 of these over the period of the entire deck. Because they're flexible, they do eventually wear out and break, whereas these are a lot more robust. However, this wasn't ideal for removing the teak because it wouldn't move with the curve of the deck as much, and it ended up just gouging into the gel coat or getting under the substrate and making a mess of that. But for this job here, where I'm just going to pull off the remainder of that hardwood or plywood that's making up the core, I think I'll use this rigid one. This is probably going to be better for that. Right, well, the first thing I have to do is get into the forward cabin and remove the screws that are holding in the headliner. So what surprises me a little bit is that these screws that hold in the headliner actually go all the way through the lower skin and into the core. They're about that long, I guess. So I need to remove these so that I can start cleaning up the remaining core. Okay, so I've had some time in the week to look around and find a potential solution to drying out the deck. And I've been talking to an engineering company called Hallberg who supply heating and cooling units. Now they've got some products which are heating mats which they use to warm ceramic. They're about 450 by 350 millimeters. So I've ordered one of those and I've ordered a control unit, and I just want to try that as a proof of concept. So once that arrives, I'll put it on the deck and see if that starts to draw out the moisture. And I'll also try putting a vacuum bag over it to suck air through the deck, as I mentioned last update. So hopefully that should be here next week and I can give that a go. And just to be clear, again, this is something that I took directly from the Sail Life video. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that YouTube channel. It's absolutely brilliant. But anyway, a few months ago, the guy there, I think his name is Mads, was using a very, very flexible heating mat to sort of wrap around the curve of his boat as he's treating some osmosis. He's got a very, very damp hull. So this is where I got the idea from these sort of flexible silicone heating mats, straight from his video. So check that out if you like. I'll put a link down the bottom. So anyway, next week I'll have that here and I can try that. So for this week, I think I just need to move around some other projects that I can work on. I've got that Dremel tool, which I'll unpack in a minute, and remove the rest of the silicone. And I'll probably start working on the stanchion bases as well. Right, let's get into it then. Okay, so I finally got around to getting myself a Dremel, and I want to use this to be able to get that last piece of silicone out of the corner of the tow rail. And also the one that's at the side of the cabin top. So it looks like there's a lot of attachments in this box. Let's just have a quick look at what we get. Oh, good. It comes in its own box, which is nice. Very good. Anything that can keep the dust off my tools is much welcomed. Right, that's it. A wall mount bracket, instructions, flexible attachment, and it looks like I get some bits here to get me started. And I think what I'll be looking at is something like that to get into that corner of the tow rail to get the silicone out. Alright, so let's see how this goes. Okay, well so far the Dremel's working really well. I found a Dremel bit for it which is kind of like a conical shaped sanding disc, and this has proved to be the best type of attachment for this job of trying to get into that sort of round seam against the tow rail. So here's how it looks. So basically I've just been going around with some sandpaper and sanding by hand most of it where I can, and then coming in afterwards with the Dremel tool and getting that last bit out. So yeah, so far so good. Happy with this purchase. Okay, well I'm into day 4 of filling up all the pinholes which are beneath the waterline in the hull. It's really painstaking work and slow going, and identifying every pinhole and filling it is a bit like trying to identify every star in the universe. For example, this is what it looks like a couple of inches away from the hull. So I'm focusing on filling these, and then as soon as I start to look back, it becomes like an increasing universe of pinholes to fill, and it actually becomes quite overwhelming. So to deal with that feeling of being overwhelmed by all the pinholes to fill, I've tried to section it off in pieces and concentrate on just doing 1 or 2 pieces a day. Okay, what you can see here are some different coloured test samples that I've been trying out. The light blue here is the product called Watertight, which is a 2-part epoxy filler by a product called International Paints. And this is actually the one that I've settled on using, so I'm going to use this for the entire hull. But I was just trying out different products. Up here the brown is basically an epoxy, West System epoxy with a 407 low density filler and a 410 colloidal silica. So that's not bad, but it doesn't sand down as well as the Watertight. And the cream colour is just another epoxy filler which is left over from the fairing compound we were using for the top sides. So these are the 3 different types that I've been trying out here. Now the best approach so far seems to be first of all to apply the epoxy into the bare substrate and into the pinholes, and then let that dry for about 8 hours until it goes tacky. And then once it's tacky, I put in the Watertight filler. I find that if I leave the epoxy dry overnight, when I come back in the morning, it's got that blush to it, which is that sort of waxy coating, and then I need to wipe everything down, wash it down with water and wipe off that waxy coating before I can apply the epoxy. So that just adds another level to the process. So if I just wait until it starts to go tacky and then apply the Watertight, that saves me another step. What I've been doing is first thing in the morning applying the epoxy, and then in the afternoon I'll do another job, and then last thing before I go I'll apply the Watertight epoxy filler. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of days, and this is the progress so far. So I've just completed the applying of the epoxy on a new section, which I'll come back at the end of the day and put filler into. So now I can do something else for the next 4 hours, which is the fun part, because this is getting pretty boring, believe me. So I've got quite a few different packages from Amazon that's arrived that I'll show you, but for now I'll just focus on this piece here. And this is my 400mm 4.5mm wide drill bit, and this is a special purpose buy, and the purpose of this drill bit is to try and get in alongside of the stanchion base and use it to drill through that concrete which is keeping the stanchion base in the deck join. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so here we are with the first stanchion to try and free up and drill out. Basically this has got a split along the deck to hull join here as well, so I will need to come back here and open this up, glue it back and clamp it down again. But anyway, so as you can see it's loose. First thing I need to do is take a measurement of the angle so that when I reset it I can get the angle right again. Okay, so next part, I've got my very, very long drill bit, 400mm, and center punch. Yeah, I can feel that's loosened up already. So hopefully if I can just drill around it a few times and break that up, this will come out, and then I can get back there with a larger drill piece to clean it all up. Yeah, so you can see here there's just a few outlines where I drilled down, and then I sort of wiggled it around a bit and broke it up, and then the whole unit came out like such. As I was saying before, there's a split along here. This is opened up, so this will need to be opened up. Like I'll put a wedge in here to open this up a bit, put some really thick epoxy paste in, and then screw it down here, and that will secure it again. and then I can just drill this out. I think this is about 25 mil, so drill it straight down to clean out all of this and then rebed it. So talking of rebedding, the problem I've got is I don't have any bases left in the deck that are true. They're all either fallen out or they're loose. So I don't really know what the angle of them is meant to be 100%. I'm kind of trying to reverse engineer, I guess, what that angle should be. So if anybody watching does actually have a 352 Hallberg-Rassy, I'd be really grateful if you would be able to measure yours, you know, just if you get the chance. If you do, please leave a comment. I'd really like to know what it's meant to be. Okay, so that's number one. There's another 6 to remove because I need to remove the ones that hold the bow and stern push bits in as well. So I think I'll just go around and do these now in one piece. Okay, well, it's the end of my day today. I had some quite good success getting all the stanchion bases out, and that 400mm drill bit was really worth waiting for because it really made that job easier. As per every day this week, just before I go home, I need to spend the last hour putting some more filler into those pinholes. It's a job that's absolutely driving me crazy, but if I figure I do a couple of hours every day, I'll get through it. Okay, well, thanks for watching. So far it seems to be going on okay. The stiffness of it seems okay. It's not too stiff that you can't work with it, but it's sort of viscous enough not to be falling out.